this is the paper that I am trying to kind of posit here, building up from the previous paper as an epistemic critique again. So the paper as it is titled is the Toto as an ecological alternative in Rajarhat. So Rajarhat is a town, a smart city which has been built near the metropolis of Kolkata to decongest the city. And the entire agenda of creating the smart city, like Rajarhat, has now also been framed as a smart city, interestingly. And the interesting aspect of this entire thing is that narrative green smartening informs the urban planning logic of Rajarhat New Town. So essentially, at this point, we can also locate that this is a state-led development initiative which was done in 1999 in Indian state of West Bengal, and it was done by a communist party under the Communist Party of India Marxist rule by acquiring 3500 acres of agrarian subsistence land. So post that, what happened is basically a number of initiatives were floated by the state to align the city with global imaginaries of smart governance, eco-sustainability and energy efficient mobility. So this is a paper that basically builds upon those schemes that the state tried to foray into the new town, and then it takes it from there to sort of do a situated critique of energy politics in Rajarhat New Town and how that happens. So essentially, after 1999, we see that there has been a gradual shift in the narrative of urban planning, and the Toto was basically initiated as a mobility vehicle, which is typically promoted by various actors, state, non-state, capital, local, etc. And such actors and networks surrounding the Toto, which is basically a kind of a mobility vehicle. It is an e-rickshaw, which like succeeds the cycle rickshaws and pedal rickshaws of Kolkata, and earlier they were the hand-pulled rickshaws. And now this Toto is basically something which is sort of powered by electric batteries, and they have apparently no tailpipe emissions, are powered by smart technology and renewable sources of energy. So the entire thing is pinned as a solution to pollution problems. So air quality index apparently is the thing that the state is trying to pitch here. Now, our research tries to understand how a number of storylines which are competing apparently, and also which arise from competing and contradictory frameworks, coalesce around the Toto as a mobility actor to sort of give it a coherent shape of an artifact that can then be floated by the state. So there would be capital interests or finance interests who would say that I manufacture the Toto, the interests of the energy industry, who would push for certain kind of energy solutions. Then the local informal actors who basically have lost farming land and have now resettled into the informal economy, and they are now trying to provide last mile connectivity into the city in an absence of in a complete absence of last mile connectivity and state infrastructure, because the state totally collapsed and couldn't make the infrastructure in the first place. So all of these are competing narratives, and they have very competing standpoints and epistemic locations. So the state basically tries to give this a coherence by situating the Toto such that everybody benefits, so that the residents also benefits, because there are no alternate vehicular solutions to take the freight or middle class residents from the arterial road to the middle class residential complexes, or to ferry them basically. And this is where we invoke Heidegger to say that the Toto becomes an object here, and also a part of Bill Brown's thing theory to say that how the Toto can be then read as more than a vehicular element to also read the Toto as a epistemic standpoint, how this interaction is happening in Rajarhat New Town. So this is a specific kind of functionality at the state and various other actors are doing in interest to coalition number of other actors in the coherent narrative, and it is where Hager's understanding of competing storylines coming together to inform a coalition magnet also makes some kind of a sense. Now, while this is true, this is also true for a number of other similar vehicular arrangements. For example, in Jakarta, there is this Siang Thau, which is a very similar kind of vehicular arrangement. I already talked about the Indian renditions of that. Then in Thailand, there is something called the Romanok. So this is basically an interreferential comparison where I draw upon Chen's book to say that we can speak beyond epistemic framework given to us by the Western theoretical canon, using our artifacts, using things that are very much context specific to inform a broader theory of knowledge production in South Asia and a broader part of Asia per se. The interesting thing which I would like to end my paper with is the fact that there is a different kind of energy, there is a different kind of vehicular arrangement that has also come up in Rajarhat New Town. So one, the Toto is basically a vehicle that is used by the middle class, and I'm extremely sorry I am not able to also show you the PPT here, but the Toto is a vehicle which is mostly used to enable mobility of middle class residents, and the local drivers are from the informal sector. But there are alternative vehicular arrangements which are mostly used to ferry construction materials and 20-30 people who are there in the informal sector to sort of also make sure that the city can function based on the contingency of the thoroughfaring of these bodies whom it exploits, right? And these vehicles are known as vano. So an interesting thing happened, like when the land acquisition was happening, big agitation was happening in Singur related to the Tata automobile factory, which was supposed to set up a nano vehicle factory. So Nano was a vehicle which was imagined as a middle class vehicle by Tata, which would like have 4 seats and be available in 1 lakh Indian rupees. So that would be $100,000 maybe. $1,000 maybe. Now the thing here is like the land acquisition for Singur was stalled and the Nano could not take off. And now when we did field work with these people, they said that while the middle classes in the Tata group could not make their Nano, we have made our Vano because they have assembled scrap material, motorbike parts with cycle vans and into a vehicle to take 20-30 people from the informal sector to ensure the social reproduction of the city. So here we see a functional dyad emerging in the specific field site of Rajarhat. And why I say a dyad is specific to Rajarhat because the governance narrative is not something which you can find in Mufasil towns or Kolkata even. It is very specific to Rajarhat as a smart city. And the Vano makes sense as a dyad, as a cultural dyad in Rajarhat New Town. Now, this also resembles what Kollan Channel analyzes as the two spaces of capital. So he says that there is this need economy and the accumulation economy. So it is technically possible to map the Toto in the accumulation economy because it helps formal accumulation, and formal accumulation also happens to the Toto because big corporates are also promoting the Toto, and the Vano can then be absolutely located in the need economy. So this is basically my paper. I am very sorry for not being able to sum it up and show you the entire detail. And here Chen is invoked as an epistemic or a protest, as you may. Thank you.
Thanks, Atriya. Thanks so much, and thanks for speeding yourself up there and everything. I really appreciate the cooperation on that front. We do have time, maybe 10 minutes or so. Well, actually, let me think now. We have maybe 5 minutes because it would be good to have a little break, and I need to set up for Nihal as well, who's scheduled for 10 o'clock. I'm just thinking, because we have an audience both on Zoom and in the room, that it'd be more congenial to first invite folks to just ask all of you, any questions that people might have, and then I'll make a few quick reflections, and then I'll send around an email to all of you about planning our next meeting, which we should have quite soon, because there's some exciting possibilities that have come up for us, kind of thing. So I'll be in touch about that. But let me first see if either folks in the room or on Zoom have any questions for the presenters, or any thoughts or observations and so on.
Hi,
Yes.
I have two questions for two presenters.
Sure.
Right. Let me just briefly introduce myself. I am a postgraduate student of history at Presidency University, Kolkata. These two questions go out to Shomik and Diyali, respectively. Shomik sir, you kind of talked about how the state manufactures that liminality of in-betweenness in the context of citizenship, in the context of the people who have the required state documents like an Aadhaar card, like a PAN card, like a voter card, but yet are jailed because of their incapability to provide an address that is on the other side of the border, right? But I was wondering what kind of liminality that produces in the collective space of that prison camp that you were referring to. And to Diyali ma'am, my question is that drawing on Walter Benjamin here, Benjamin advocates for a reevaluation of what constitutes a work, right? What constitutes the success of a work, that the success of a work should stem from its usefulness in the class struggle, right? This engenders a form of authorship that is accessible and encourages active kind of involvement with the proletariat, where the contrasting the bourgeois model, where a work of arts production and authorship remains confined to elite circles. Right. My question here is that how does Hero Alok situate himself in the politics of appropriating elite class aesthetic refinement, as you were talking about, but when he does not have the necessary political commitment to actually circumscribe them, and therefore does not actually contest cultural elitism, but contra that it actually reinforces.
I'll just go first, if that's right. Just first of all, a clarification that Aadhaar card or voter card, any documents which we use in India, none of those prove citizenship. So in the case of India, you have to prove that your ancestors were in India before a certain point. So in the case of Assam, it will be 1971. So you have to prove that your ancestors were living in Assam before 1971. So for that, you have to produce land documents, or you can produce school living certificates if you have access to this. And the second thing, that you can, so the voter card is not important, but the voter list is quite important. So if you can show that one of your ancestors' name was there in the voter list of 1965 or 1966, then that acts as a proof of citizenship. So most people, as you can understand, being from India, most people cannot provide, a document that dates back to 1966, like it's before my own citizens were almost before. So now coming to your question, liminality in places like detention centers. This, answer has two parts. Now, till 2022, the detention camps were situated within prisons. So the liminality there and the disassociation of the individual or the mental strain that the individual went through was very unique, because on one hand, the individual is fairly certain that he's an Indian. He has no connection to Bangladesh. So he is very, very confident about his Indianness, his legitimacy as an Hindu citizen. And to him, he is being put in a prison. Now what they used to do is, within a prison, they put a partition. And the partition is not necessarily big, a wall or something like that. They'll just put a piece of cloth, a curtain. And one side of the curtain would be a prison for actual criminals, and the other side would be for detainees or Bangladeshis, right? But they would eat in the same place where, the common area was the same. So for them, it was a liminal space where they could not relate what they know, or they could not relate their belief in themselves as Indians with the predicament that they were faced with. And but after 2022, there is a very specialized transit camp. So the only thing that changes after 2022 is that the government legally acknowledges the fact that these institutions or these facilities of imprisonment are not permanent prisons, but rather transit camps, and the people held there are in transit. So, for example, and India only has one transit. There are 270 people. I spoke about 63 people who the Indian state says are Bangladeshi, but they individually say that we are not Bangladeshi. But the other 206 or 7 odd people, a significant amount of them are from Myanmar, given the current crisis in Myanmar. So most of them are Rohingyas, most of them are Chin, from the Rohingya community or Chin community. So the liminality there is slightly different, but for these 63 people who my research focuses on, maybe it does not change after 2020, but the government's perception changes. So maybe after 2022, I may be able to argue that liminality is more or less accepted by the government as a state of being in that. So thank you.
Right. Tiali.
Hi. I just need a small clarification from you. Did you ask whether Hero Alam reinforces cultural hegemony or not? Is this something that you asked?
Right. My premise was that since Hero Alam, kind of like where do you situate him while he approaches elite class aesthetic refinement with respect to culture? He actually does not contest cultural elitism while you argue that he bypasses it, but actually reinforces them. I'm not talking about a hegemony here because I don't think that Bengaliness as a hegemony is still a valid paradigm at the present. There are multiple ways to circumscribe them, but in the absence of a political commitment, while appropriating elite plus aesthetic refinement, how does he actually contest and not reinforce them, or vice versa?
I wouldn't say he completely overthrows it. He tries to navigate his way through it. And like at the same time, he tries to reveal the contradictions that are embedded within it. So like my research into his videos and like subsequent comments, it revealed that how, I mean, he exposes the anxiety of elite control legitimacy, of course, but like I said, he doesn't dismantle it. And then like his fame, again, then remains a product of elite discourse, right? I mean, he's of course talked about, but then he's not listened to. And then so I would say, just to give you, there is no one straightforward answer to your question. But then I believe that like his visibility on social media is very much dependent on the platform affordances, right? And like it's because of the platform affordances that he becomes famous, and also he is also legitimized by the views. At the same time, he's like continuously denigrated throughout the comments. Like if you go through the comments, you'll be able to understand how. And just a cursory view of the comments will reveal that. But then it's like you can't really culturally disrupt something without, bringing in some major structural change. He's not exactly bringing a structural change per se, but then like I would say that he's like trying to navigate through it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Diyali. We are rapidly running out of time here, so I'm just going to say a couple of very quick things, and then thank all of you for such wonderful presentations. Really, it seems to me that all of you and all of us together have really moved much further along in terms of our engagement with the kind of provocation that is Chen's work, and you've really begun to think about your own projects in very, very interesting ways with respect to the kind of provocations that Chen leaves us with. And so I'm really thrilled about that. As I said, I'll be in email contact with all of you very, very soon, possibly tomorrow, but soon enough to kind of have a kind of follow-up for this, and we can elaborate further on the conversation about that I'm going to cut short here now, kind of thing. But I wanted to say a couple of quick things in terms of Chen's work and what all of you have done, which is that the first thing I want to say about Chen's work itself is that he writes this book called Asia as a Method. And then the very interesting thing about his book is that he spends a good bit of time arguing about why Asia can neither be a subject of knowledge, nor can it be an object of knowledge, because of all of the complexities of history in different places that he deals with, and so on. And for that reason, he spends a good bit of time sort of against the grain of his text in a certain kind of way, arguing that Asia cannot be a method, right? And to me, this is but at the same time, in relationship to the kind of project of provincializing Europe, and that all of you have kind of picked up on in terms of thinking about your own empirical research in that kind of way, he also makes a very, very strong, powerful argument as to why one needs to provincialize this relationship that Asian scholars have historically inherited in terms of a framework of knowledge production that is both centered in Euro-America, and that the materials of the very materiality of scholarly production is structured around a specific history of Euro-America and so on, in terms of the concepts, language, points of reference, all kinds of different things like this, right? And so in this regard, his text and his title, I would say, is a kind of speculative proposition, a speculative dialectical one, that he argues has to be ultimately grounded in local realities, right? Because this is the other part of his project, is to sort of make an intervention in the theoretical horizon of historical materialism and rethink that from the particularities of Asian issues and so on in that regard. And so it seems to me that in terms of some of the themes that we've been engaging with, one is the continuity of colonialism from the past into the present. All of you have engaged with that in one way or another. The question of subaltern agency, and maybe in this respect, Guho's idea of an autonomous domain of subaltern politics is relevant in strange ways in all of these kinds of projects that you're working on in that regard. There's a whole set of things about the question of urbanism, both in terms of culture, in terms of practices with the Toto and so on, with knowledge production and planning, in your case, Pradeep, and so on. And maybe even in the case of state power and how a state relates to its subjects and that kind of thing. No time to dig into that, but maybe when we do meet again, we can. I'll elaborate a little bit more on what hazy thoughts I have about that, and we can sort of continue this conversation. But for now, I want to thank all of you for wonderful presentations. I'm really, really pleased and so on. And I've also shared the link to Nihal's presentation with you. So if it's not too late, these folks are all, it's nighttime where they are, late night time where they are. If it's not too late for you, please do sit in on Nihal's keynote talk, which is starting very soon. Thanks so much. I'm gonna close this session now, okay?